Hi there, I'm Ellen from the Charles and Ellen Academy, and today I'm going to show you 3 ways that you can do the backstitch technique. So I'll start with the single-sided backstitch. This is what we use for all of our patterns, for all of our courses, designs. This is the one I love, so I'll start by that. Do the first stitch in the direction that you are planning to go. So I just quickly sketched out 3 lines here to help us. Make 1 stitch, and when I say a stitch length, that is roughly half the width or the width of your fingernail. Take up the stitch a stitch length, or your needle a stitch length away. Pull through all the way every time. Go back to the previous hole and pull through, and then back to the hole you just came from and pull through. It's just about continuing. You make a stitch in the direction that you want to go, take up a stitch length away, going back to the previous hole, and then going back to where you just came from. Now, what makes this way of doing the backstitch a bit different than how some others are doing the backstitch? It's because we are not going the full loop back every time. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'll just stitch up this line first. By the way, in case you are wondering, I'm using 2 strands of the DMC floss. All right, we'll jump down to the next one. Now, what do we mean with doing the full loop every time? You start with a stitch length in the direction that you want to go. Take up a distance away, so a stitch length away, going back to the previous hole. Now this time, you take it up stitch length away and going back to the previous hole. So this is the double-sided, the back stitch, where you will be having a covered surface on the back side, covered line the whole way. Let me actually flip this over and I'll show it to you. So you see here the difference of the double lined versus where you pull through every time and you go to the back to the closest hole, so to say. You don't go all the way full loop back every time. All right? So this is really a preference of what feels the most comfortable to you, what feels the most natural. And personally, I like the first one because it saves me floss, frankly. So let's repeat again the full loop. You always go a distance away, a stitch length away, and going back to the previous hole. So, Ellen, why do you show 3 different ways of doing the backstitch if you already said that you like the first one? It's because we are all different. Sometimes we vibe with a certain way of doing a technique. It just feels more natural. And when it comes to art and creativity, at least in the Charles and Ellen Academy, we are always encouraging you to go for what feels the most natural to you, because then you are more likely to continue, which is at the end of the day the ultimate goal, right? We want you to succeed in your creativity, in your art, and it just wouldn't make sense to us, and when I say us, I refer to myself and my husband Charles, just wouldn't make sense to us to say you have to do it in this way. So the last and third way, now this is likely the most time-saving way, so I just threaded my needle again. We start here. This time It's the same principle of doing the full loop. It's just that you do the stitch in one go. So without pulling the needle and floss through every time. Whoops, got stuck here. Let me start that over. I got stuck around the, I'll just thread the needle again. Got stuck around the side here of my embroidery stand. By the way, there's a link to that in the description below. Okay, let's start over. So, the third way is the most time efficient, where you do both of the stitches, both on the front and the back, in one go. Pulling through, going back to the previous hole, and now you go on the back side a distance away. You see that? So it's exactly the same placement of your stitches as the middle one, the one we just did. The only difference is that this one is done all at once. You're not pulling through each stitch at the time. So again, when would you want to use these different versions of the backstitch? Whoops, that one wasn't perfectly aligned. It's okay. When would you want to use these different versions of the backstitch? Well, it depends. If you are making a large piece where you are more interested in making some faster advancements, I would definitely go for the third option here, where you do both of the stitches in the same time. Otherwise, when we are working with our architectural embroideries, such as this one, this is one of the class projects in our academy. It's the class project for the architectural hand embroidery for beginners. You see all of the contours are done with the backstitch technique in the first option. The first way of pulling through every stitch. Let's fold over again just to show you how it looks like on the back. So the first one will save you the most floss. You pull through every time compared to the other two versions that are full loop, both double-sided backstitched. Now, the first version where you're pulling through every time, actually the first top ones, where you're pulling through every time you pull through each individual stitch, you have slightly more control over your line, okay? Whereas here, it's a little bit more, I would say, intuitive and impressionist. It goes a bit quicker if you want to do a lot of lines, cover bigger surfaces, whereas on these two upper versions, you can be a bit more precise. And when it comes to architectural embroidery, that's usually what you want to be. Now, I hope that this was helpful just to display and show the three different ways that you can do the backstitch technique. Now it's up to you to practice, try the different ways of doing it and see which one fits for you. Now, if you want to learn more from us, don't hesitate to check out the link in the bio below and our courses on Charles and Ellen Academy. We've got also a free beginner's course there, your first free architectural pattern as well. Just check down below and you will find out more information. Now, thank you so much for watching. Bye.